Is it time to stop the war on landlords? UK government I'm talking about. It is time to stop this war on private landlords in the rental sector. The housing rental crisis is getting worse every day. Every time we look at the news, there are stories of people who can't find properties in the Northwest in particular at the moment, but also in London. There's a massive shortage of properties. The government needs to cease its war on landlords and stop all of this anti-landlord legislation and restore some of the balance of power that is heavily gone towards tenants and tenants' rights in the last few years. And we've seen it on the news. They were even saying that local authorities and the Home Office are competing for properties because the Home Office wants to house refugees and asylum seekers, and the local authorities want to house people who are deemed to be homeless. And there's this massive struggle. Somebody I know had the property. The Home Office gazumped the local authority looking for the same property. They were offering, I think the local authority said, we'll give you $2,000 a month for it, and the Home Office came in and gazumped them and gave the landlord £2,300. That's an extra £3,600 a year for that same property. So this is what's going on at the moment. Housing charities, of course, such as Shelter, the usual, the big issue, they're all calling for tough legislation. They said, why didn't the government push ahead with its renters reform bill before the summer recess? And of course, they're calling for the end of no-fault evictions, which basically is a Section 21 rule that says the landlord can have their property back when they need to, which is usually at the end of a tenancy. I'm dealing with a case at the moment where the tenant doesn't want to move out. I'm helping a landlord with it. The tenant just won't move out. So they said, no, can't move, I'm not moving. And that's it. So they want an end to all of that. And some of them are also calling for a cap on rental increases. They want a cap on it so that, you're not. And of course, this happened in Scotland. What did landlords do? They tried to jack up rents before this cap. And I think that the Scottish government's having second thoughts on that. But all of this is adding to landlord anxiety and causing them to quit in droves. Thousands of landlords have quit over the last 5 years. Now, some of that could be down to retirement, of course, but I think a lot of it is down to landlords just getting out the market. We hear of Rightmove reporting that there are more buy-to-let sales than there are purchases at the moment. There's a net outflow of buy-to-lets. We won't know the full result of this until maybe next year, when we see, when the tide's gone out, as it were, and then we'll see how many buy-to-let properties there are. Now, of course, not everyone's getting out. Some are saying, well, we're going to stay with it because rents are going up. It's quite good, thank you very much. I don't care if there's end to no-fault eviction. But a lot of landlords are getting worried, and thousands have actually left the buy-to-let market, particularly the ones with one or two properties. And look, the housing charities are calling for this tough, thinking that it's going to help the problem, but of course it's not. Now, shelters say that 1 in 7 of tenants have had their rent increased last month. Well, that's not surprising, really, in some cases, because a lot of landlords have not increased rents for years, and perhaps they're worried about higher interest rates. Over 3.5 million private tenants who have had their rent increased, over 800,000 saw it rise by more than £100 a month, and nearly 200,000 by more than 300 a month. What about the landlords who've come to the end of a fixed rate and seen their mortgage double and even treble because they've come to an end of a 2-year fixed rate and gone on to a 6 or 7% interest rate? Shelter goes on to say that 1 in 3 spend at least half their household income on rent. Okay, I mean, that's not a great situation. I don't know how they got into that rental property if half of their income is going on rent, because they wouldn't normally fit the mold in terms of, giving a rental property to a tenant that can't afford it. But I've been in situations when I was renting, when I first started renting and working, where I'd say I was in the same sort of position. I was paying a lot of rent, and I was in that same kind of position. I remember that being in exactly the same position. I've had more than half my income go on mortgage payments. So, there's nothing new about that. Now, the government has introduced, as we know, a raft of new anti-landlord legislation, new rules and regulations, more red tape for private landlords, including, of course, George Osborne's famous Section 24 tax hike, which mean that a lot of landlords now, it's just not worth it for them because they're just paying more tax. They cannot write the interest off against rental income. Now, all businesses can do this. Any business borrowing money can write off interest against, can write off income, write off interest payments against income to reduce their overall gross and to net profit. So why they've done this to landlords, I just don't know. Thank you very much, George Osborne. The only way out of that, of course, is to change the rental model or move the property into a limited company. But that, of course, can trigger stamp duty and capital gains tax. But there is a way around that. And I'll put a link up there to see if you want to look at a specialist firm that can help you get around that and move your property into a limited company without paying stamp duty and capital gains tax. The other thing they brought in is Tenant Fees Act, of course. More tests, electrical tests, Legionella tests. A lot of landlords don't even know this, actually. And lots of things that can trip up a landlord and mean that they would not be able to get possession of their property again, or they could face a fine from the local authority for not complying with all of these rules and regulations. We know that a lot of local authorities have introduced blanket licensing across all properties in their borough, which means another £500 or £600 in fees to landlords just to fill out forms and do plans and that sort of thing. So we know that there's a lot more hassle now for landlords, and worry as well, more liabilities hanging over their head. And of course, the big one is coming, Renters Reform Bill, which will end no fault evictions, the end of the Section 21, and give tenants more rights. It will also mean that tenants will have more demands and can bring in a pet unless you can give a good reason why. You may have to go to court to show the court why you need possession of that property back. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Why should you go to court to end a tenancy at the end of the tenancy, or just to say to the tenant, well, look, you've been here 2 or 3 years, I don't want to rent this property anymore. Why should you have to give a reason like I'm selling it? You can't go to a court and lie about that. Some people just don't. I mean, I know somebody who just doesn't want to rent their property. They just say, well, I'm just going to keep it empty. I don't care. So, but they would have to go and prove that to the tenant, and then you'd have charities like Shelter saying, no, it should be confiscated and that sort of thing. I don't actually mean that literally, but you know what I mean. You've got these extreme left-wing people that believe that all property should be in the hands of the state. Yeah, good luck with that. Try going living in the Soviet Union or North Korea, and see how that works for you. Meanwhile, look, the crisis is leading to record rent highs. Whoa, how did they work? Did we expect that rents would go up as there's a shortage of properties? Oh, we never thought about that. As predicted, this war on landlords and and all the other things that are going on is just backfired on the government. And who's paying for it? Landlords and tenants. The tenants are paying more for it. It's absolutely the most stupid thing I've seen. And this is from a government that's supposed to believe in small businesses and helping small business people. It's supposed to believe in people who row their own boat and get on with their life. They're expected to lose the next election. And then we've got a Labour government coming in, a socialist government coming in. And some of the people on their side are calling for all sorts of things, worse than what we've got now. They're calling for fixed tenancies of 3 and 5 years. They're calling for controlled tenancies. They're calling for wealth taxes and that sort of thing. So God help us when that comes in. So this is another maybe reason that's causing landlords to pull out the market. And as predicted, this is causing everything to go wrong. And we're going back to that sort of 1960s era where landlords just couldn't rent to properties because the tenant could stay there for life. I'm not saying it's going to go back quite that far, but it's moving back towards that. And I just don't understand people like, Gove and that sort of thing that they're talking about, oh, let's build more properties in the cities. Well, hang on a second, can't you see the cities? How crowded they are, how many properties have been tacked on top of another property and down the side of another property, and every bit of space has been used, even if it backs onto a main line railway, and then you can wave to people as they go by on the Intercity Express. And I just don't get it. Why don't they have more bold plans if they want to build properties, like building new cities in places where they're needed, next to major roads and next to major rail links, a bit like Milton Keynes. That has been an outstanding success. No, they just keep on tacking properties here and there and not building any real proper social housing or council housing. So that's why there's a shortage of property. And of course, due to we've got to say it, mass immigration, millions more people coming into the country over the last 10, 20 years, and that has increased the population. Also, we're seeing people living longer, of course, more single units needed and that sort of thing. Now, look, another hammer blow is the Bank of England's interest rate hikes over the last 13 meetings, 0.25% here, half, 0.25%, going from almost 0 to 5%. And that's been a hammer blow. Now, they say it's to reduce inflation, but of course, their policies and the government's policies caused inflation. Massive money printing, massive stimulus to the economy, massive amounts, hundreds of billions spent on the we can't even mention on here. Massive money wasted on things, from bounce back loans to PPE, all these sorts of things. And now they're saying, oh no, we've got to tighten our belts, don't ask for pay rises, expect to be poorer, as the Bank of England economist said, and we're going to hike up interest rates. We don't care who suffers, we don't care who loses their property and businesses who go down and all the rest of it. But there's more pain to come, because the Fed this week and the ECB, both on the day after each other, raised interest rates again by 0.25%, and the ECB interest rates 3.75 now, a record high. And of course, we've got an upcoming meeting, I think, next week with the Bank of England. What do you think they're going to do? Well, I'll give you 3 guesses. Of course, they're going to follow, because they're all in the same club, right? They will follow and increase rates. So we're going to go probably to 5.25%, maybe 5.5%. And yet inflation is coming down slowly in the UK. As per the recent figures, it's just under 8% now. It was over 10% at one stage. So that's really a 20% decrease, if you like. So that's what's going to happen. Landlords, of course, are either getting out. Some are switching to other rental models. Some are saying, right, I won't do the standard buy-to-let AST. I'll switch to service accommodation or a company let, or even HMOs. And some of these things are to get around rental reforms. Now, HMOs won't do that, but service accommodation will, to bypass renters reform legislation so that you don't have to worry about Section 21, because if someone's in a service accommodation for a month, 2 months, or 2 weeks, at the end of it, they just go. It's just like going to a hotel. And also company lets are a similar sort of model. And they can also then substantially increase rental returns, perhaps even as high as doubling their profits, certainly by 1.5 to 2 times the current profit rate. And of course, they can also get around the Section 24 tax changes, because it will be a different rental model. It's a holiday let model. And then that will, of course, help them survive these massive interest rate increases that are coming for millions of borrowers, not just landlords, but also home buyers in the next year. Hundreds of thousands of people are coming off those fixed rates every month. So check out my other links down there about landlords and serviced accommodation, holiday lets versus buy-to-let. I'll go into that in a bit more detail. Also, how to transfer your property into a limited company without paying CGT, capital gains, or stamp duty. And if you'd like more information about a webinar that I've got coming up, it's not this Wednesday coming, it's the Wednesday after. There's a link there as well for that, for my webinar, which is the 3 steps to money management. I think in a time like this, we all need a bit more help with our money management and learning more about how to invest your money to make it grow, because millions of people are facing a pensions crisis. They're not funding their pensions nearly enough, and a lot of them have left it a bit late. So look, check out my webinars and the other links I talked about. And I'm sorry it's been a doom and gloom today, but I'm really angry with this government and this consistent war on landlords. Stop the war on landlords, government. I urge you to do this. Otherwise, we're going to have more of a housing crisis and more pain for renters. Thank you very much, and I'll see you at the next video. This is Charles Kelly, bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, and enjoy more money. Thank you.